Well, hello. Today we're going to make chocolate anise biscotti. I know some of you are really anxious to use some of that anise that you ground last semester, so this will give you an opportunity. It's a pretty simple recipe. You know, biscotti is called the twice baked cookie, and you'll see why as we go through this process. So let's begin. We're going to start with about 2 cups of flour, and to that I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of baking powder. Whisk that in, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Whisk that in. Super simple. Put that aside. The next thing you're going to do is take your butter and sugar and cream them. So we're using 1/2 cup of butter, which is 1 stick, right? And to that, we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar, and I'm using white processed sugar. This biscotti sort of has a little bit of a shortbread kind of texture to it. And I believe that the white sugar is best. You know, I think the brown sugar is going to make it a little bit too heavy, might even make it a little bit too sweet. It'll change the flavor. We don't want to do that. So let's mix this. You can use it. You can use this. You know, use a mixer, a hand mixer if you want, or you can just blend it yourself like this. It doesn't take that long for it to all come together, and that's probably pretty good. So to this 1 cup or 1/2 cup butter and 3/4 of a cup of sugar, we're going to add 2. Well, let's do the seasoning first. Let's put the anise in. So the anise, it calls for 1 teaspoon of ground. I'm going to use the seeds. I always have. I can grind them if I want, but I kind of like the texture of the seeds. But you are absolutely encouraged to do either one. You know, whatever you have on hand. Sometimes the anise is really hard to find at the grocery stores. So seeds are what I have, so seeds are what I'm going to use. Not the big black center seeds. This is like that ground down. So to that, I'm going to add 2 beaten eggs. All right. And you want to mix that up really well. And I think with this, as you can see, it's a little bit messy. So I'm going to actually use my whisk here and kind of try to mix this in really well. And once I feel that this is pretty well blended, I'm going to add my dry ingredients. So I think, make sure your butter is soft. I made sure this butter was soft, so leave your butter out. If your kitchen is too cold, put the butter in a warm place. Okay, here's the mix. To that, now we're going to add all those wonderful dry ingredients. Just like that. Throw it right in there. I'm not going to use the whisk at this point because this is going to get very thick. It's going to be a dough that you're going to shape with your hands. That's the interesting part. You make a loaf of this, and we bake the loaf for about 30 minutes, and then you bring it out, cool it down, and then cut it into slices and bake it again, thus the twice baked cookie. So here we go. This is looking pretty good. I'm going to get my hands into it real quick here and kind of mix it thoroughly. It is kind of it's a nice dough. You'll see it'll pull together really nicely here. So here we go. You get a good picture of that dough? And I had such beautiful eggs. They were farm fresh eggs, so my dough is a little bit yellow, which is lovely when you have a really good egg like that. Okay, our dough looks good. To this dough now, you're going to add your chocolate chips. They can be chocolate chunks. They can be whatever kind of chocolate you want. You can use bittersweet. You can use semi-sweet, dark chocolate. Now Nestle's makes a dark chocolate chip. I happen to have milk chocolate. So I'm going to add my 1 cup of milk chocolate chips, and I'm going to blend that into my dough. It's like kneading bread. So, it's perfect. Okay, it has come together absolutely beautifully. So I'm going to take it out of the bowl now, dump it onto my parchment paper lined baking sheet, or you can grease a baking sheet. Don't put it directly on the baking sheet. Use grease if you can, a little bit of butter. And at this point, you should shape it into you can see how this is going to end up looking like biscotti. You kind of make it like well, it's more than a football shape. It's like a log shape, and it should be, this dough says it makes about a 12 to 16 inch log. And this is how I like it, because see, you're going to have slices. So whatever shape you want. I kind of make it wider in the middle and a little bit more narrow on the ends, a little bit like a baguette almost. So there is our log ready to go into the oven. It's going to go into a 350-degree oven for 30 minutes. And I'll see you when we take it out. Okay, so I put the biscotti, I put the log into the oven for about 35 minutes. I had to cook mine, and it got it nice and just very lightly golden brown, because the second baking is when it'll really brown up. I brought it out, and to save time, I cut it up, and you cut it on the diagonal, and you'll see when I bring it out of the oven, cut it on the diagonal, and then you place the pieces cut side down back on your tray and put them back in the oven for about 15 more minutes, maybe 20, to get them nice and golden brown. And this is what they look like. This is your biscotti, and it's fully cooked through. And here you go. Isn't that gorgeous? It's kind of golden brown on both sides. It's sort of toast. It's a twice baked cookie, kind of a toasted cookie. And here we go. It'll have it, enjoy it with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. And I'm going to let it cool a little bit more before I bite into it, because it's got chocolate. But anyway, a pretty easy little cookie to make, and it's great for dessert. It's really good for breakfast, and it's just good for an anytime snack. So have fun doing it, and I'll see you on Thursday.